Hey, this is Stuart. Most people would recognize Donkey Kong's first appearance for television in the Donkey Kong Country series. But did you know he was part of an even obscure block series back in the 1980s called Saturday Supercade? Let's get into it. Saturday Supercade was an American animated TV series by Ruby Spears Production, a sister company to Hanna-Barbera. You may recognize their work on the Scooby and Scrappy-Doo Puppy Hour, Chuck Norris Karate Commando, Alvin and the Chipmunks, and Mega Man. It only lasted for 2 seasons on CBS from September 1983 to August 1985. The lineup featured iconic video game characters from the 80s, Frogger, Donkey Kong, Jr., Pitfall, and Q*bert. Kangaroo and Space Ace would join the lineup in '84, replacing Donkey Kong Jr. and Pitfall. Thank goodness for Jr.
Your life is nothing. You serve zero purpose. You should kill yourself now.
So I know the footage that you're watching isn't really the best. That's because there's no official way of watching the series. The only way you could really find it is through VHS recordings, reruns, and a bootleg DVD. Unfortunately, not all episodes are found, making this partial lost media. Here's a current list of Donkey Kong episodes that are missing. If you have any way of unearthing these lost findings, please contact the folks at the Lost Media Wiki. Link is provided in the description. I mentioned the other show as a part of this block, but I mainly want to focus on Donkey Kong right now. Maybe Junior in a follow-up video. Yeah, that's right, you little twerp. We'll get to you some other time. So the plot's mainly about Donkey Kong escaping the circus, as you can see in the opening intro. Mario and Pauline make it their mission to capture and return him back. The series does respect the original source material, but flips it in their own way to fit a children's cartoon show. Donkey Kong can be seen throwing barrels and kidnapping Pauline, with Mario having to save her. What differs from this formula is that Mario comes up with creative ideas to try to stop the ape. Most of the time this fails miserably.
Hey, yo, my life's like a movie, my eyes are like a Uzi, jacuzzi. Get the fuck out of the way!
On the rare moments when Mario is successful, he's belittled by Pauline and others to release him. What the fuck, Pauline? But that's mainly to save her or somebody else. Each episode has a new villain with their own agenda with Donkey Kong, eventually getting their butts handed to them. I want to take this time to go over the 3 main characters, their voices, appearance, and how I feel about them in the show. Let's start with Donkey Kong. Donkey Kong is voiced by Milton Supman. He's known professionally as Soupy Sales, an American comedian actor, radio television personality, and jazz aficionado. Best known for a children's TV show, Lunch with Soupy Sales, which began in 1953. Hey, that's pretty cool. He voiced Donkey Kong first, and he's trying to copy Scooby-Doo.
Mario! Bye-bye!
Or I guess you could say every talking animal with a giggling, broken English, occasionally shouting his name thing. His appearance from arcade to the show is very minor. He sports a darker brown fur with blue eyes instead of fully black. His toenails and ears are also flesh-colored. Tragically, his nipples are gone, which makes this adaptation inferior. I will say there are good qualities about this portrayal. He is aware of his ungodly strength as a gorilla, so everything Mario does to him is considered a joke. Unfortunately, he can't control it at times, and will actively try to kill Mario. There's one episode where he's playing with a train in a toy store. Evil toy makers shrink him down, and he still does not care. The toy makers try to capture him, but get foiled easily. When they eventually get shrunken down, he summons an army of gorilla soldiers to corner the toy makers. He proceeds to kill them off screen and stuff them into Jack-in-the-Boxes like Five Nights at Freddy's. You don't see him speak, they're never shown again, they're canonically dead, you cannot change my mind. There's also another instance where he throws the metal scraps of a mechanical bull to stop cheaters at a rodeo. It lands right on top of them and they don't come out. We never see these people again, they're dead.
Coming up next!
There's also another episode where he backflips onto a prison wall to escape Mario, who's sleeping in a banana. Don't ask me. He then becomes a fake prisoner. Mind you, the guards just do not care to question because he's an ape, and gets dragged into a prison break that's disguised as a football gang.
There he is now. Ready?
Ready. Ready.
Wow, just look at this scene. He's so sad. Is this depression a reflection on how he felt being at the circus? The cage he travels in is quite small. Maybe what was honest love and caring from Pauline might come off as torture. I know he has an affection towards her. Could this be considered Stockholm Syndrome? Maybe not, because he refuses to go back to the circus. So much that he abandoned his own child in order to escape it all. I'll be honest, I would have abandoned him too. Now that he's a prisoner once again, maybe he's reminded of his past trauma.
I don't know. Well, what?
While he is slow-minded, he's also a goofball. He really loves blonde ladies. He does not care about any other woman unless they're blonde. There's one episode where he gets purchased in a pet store by a rich kid and just goes along with it.
Is he healthy?
Oh, you Schwarzenegger.
It actually does make me smile when I see both this boy and Donkey Kong just celebrating his birthday. This gets ruined when the kid chooses a girl over him. What the heck? Let's talk about Mario next.
This is my cleverest plan ever. That ape won't know it hit him.
His design was altered the most in my opinion. He sports tanner skin, a skinnier handlebar mustache, and his shirt and overalls have reversed colors. I believe this was done to fit him better with being a worker in New York. Funny enough, Nintendo would actually adopt the blue overalls and red shirt later. Mario is voiced by Peter Cullen, who you may recognize him as Optimus Prime, as well as Eeyore. You can't forget about Eeyore. Funny enough, he doesn't even remember voicing Mario.
I've seen clips of you having voiced in the Donkey Kong cartoon show, and I was wondering if you ever had wished you had somehow had the chance to stick with those characters, considering how far it has gone.
What?
You were Super Mario.
Oh!
Yeah.
I was
People don't realize that
yeah.
he was actually the very first voice of Super Mario. People don't realize.
Wow.
It was Supercade. Saturday Supercade, a very obscure show.
It's kind of a blessing in disguise. While he did do his best, the voice is very jarring.
Take a look at this, Pauline. My plan for the most perfect Donkey Kong trap ever devised. She's right. All we gotta do is figure out how to make the money. What did I tell you? You see, Stanley, Herman is perfectly fine.
I would say he reminds me of Fred from Scooby-Doo. The comparison mainly being coming up with plans and traps.
Why don't you mind your own business, pal?
While Fred mostly succeeds, Mario fails miserably. And it's at his own expense.
Now split! I said split, not sit!
Now Mario is a fucking loser.
Oh, you must be from the zoo.
The circus.
I mean, I don't think it's Mario's fault. He is going up against a gorilla. That's already a losing battle. You know, Mario, you could easily just get Donkey Kong if you had a gun. There's not much to talk about his character other than this. Donkey Kong's the one who does the heavy lifting. Mario distracts a rival circus member. Like what? It's a decent adaptation, but there's only so much you can do with what you have. I mean, this came out in, like, 1983. Now let's talk about Pauline.
If Donkey Kong becomes a star, we'll never get him back to the circus.
Her appearance, just like Donkey Kong's, is pretty faithful. Losing the eyeshadow and, I'm gonna say 80s style big haircut, to a smaller but still long haircut.
If you two don't stop arguing, he's going to escape.
She's voiced by Judy Strangus, who you might recognize her from ABC's Room 222, and Dyna Girl from Electro Woman and Dyna Girl.
Slow down. Who was here?
Who was? The Empress of Evil was here. That's,
Well, who is she?
who is she? I think she's one of the most powerful villains we've ever faced.
Pauline mainly just screams help in the game. That's mainly it. That's the only like thing you could really go off of. I would boil her down to exposition. She's always stating the obvious to both Mario and the audience.
Hurry, Mario! We gotta catch Donkey Kong before he crosses the Mexican border! I hope we can get to Donkey Kong before the Baser spots us! Mario! Donkey Kong's no bigger than a mouse! Look! He jumped into Global Studios!
I would really prefer if you would be quiet.
I shouldn't be too harsh on her. I mean, characters were written differently in the 80s. Maybe you could compare her to Daphne in the Scooby-Doo show. By that, I mean doing nothing and then getting kidnapped.
How am I supposed to compete with that?
I mean, there are some good qualities. She's the only one that can really get to Donkey Kong in serious situations.
It's a giant ape! And he's stealing the emerald!
Whether it's to help out Mario or save the day.
He escaped again! How did that big ape learn to be so sneaky?
I trained him that way.
This is all your fault.
And now, back to Saturday Supercade.
There's actually one more character I want to talk about. That's being Stanley the Bugman.
Oh, you got a deal.
He only appears in the second to last episode of Season 2, Greenhouse Gorilla. I just think he's important enough to mention since he's playable in Donkey Kong 3. You see this right here? This is Avengers Endgame. Stanley's appearance matches his arcade counterpart, sporting a blue shirt and red overalls. Interesting though, in the NES version, he's wearing a blue shirt and white overalls instead of red. The color scheme would later be represented as a trophy in Super Smash Bros. Melee, only for his arcade color scheme to be brought back as a spirit in Ultimate. Alright, here's something dark. So in the home release of Donkey Kong 3, when Stanley gets hit, he just screams and passes out. But in the arcade release, he just gets eaten alive. You know, I'll be honest, I wasn't aware that Donkey Kong had a body count until now. I'm actually kind of terrified. I honestly have no idea who voices Stanley. So the credits are very blurry, and I just don't know what it's saying. The episode that he appears in does have nods to DK3, such as the beginning taking place in a greenhouse, Donkey Kong's being tricked into fighting Stanley with bugs. But this all changes when this crook uses Stanley's plant, whose name is Herman, for his own nefarious reasons. Did you know that Herman talks?
Oh, yummy, yummy, yummy.
Yeah, it's creepy and I hate it. This episode's like the same formula though, except Stanley's there. Yeah, this guy has the right idea. Like, what would you do if a gorilla just came up to you? There's only one action scene with both Mario and Stanley, and it's like really underwhelming. They get their butts handed by both Donkey Kong and Herman. They're honestly stronger than any Dark Souls boss, and no, you can't change my mind, I really don't care.
That's our Donkey Kong!
Donkey Kong!
If there's one major flaw I gotta give this series, it's the villain department. While it's cool that every episode has a new antagonist, it just becomes formulaic. They're all easily forgettable. Their archetype boils down to being bad guys who are dumb for the sake of it. For example, this biker gang is messing with the town. To get away safely from the sheriff, they cross a border that he's not allowed to work over. They taunt him and ride off into the sunset. They go to a gas station. Then they immediately want to go back just to mess with him. There's actually one more episode I want to give a special highlight to. It's called Hairy Parent, which is technically the final episode. Donkey Kong meets his good buddy, Sonny.
Who's Sonny?
I don't know.
Sonny asks him to deliver a letter to his mom.
Who is Mama?
I don't know. Who is Mama?
His mom, known as Sonny's mom, lives in Africa. Donkey Kong uses a plane not to fly, but to row himself to Africa. Do you know how far Africa is from the US? Oh, look at that. Mario and Pauline also row to Africa. To them, this is Donkey Kong Escape to Africa. Donkey Kong then commits a crime by smuggling Sonny's mom from Africa to the US. Since this is the last episode, it's implied that he was dissolved into the clouds, thus finally bringing an end to this murderous rampage on society. I'm gonna make it headcanon as well that Pauline gives up on her quest to capture Donkey Kong. And as for Mario, I'm just gonna say he died and went to hell. And with that, that was an obscure Donkey Kong show. What was just a faint memory of watching one episode turned into something bigger than I expected. I was aware that the arcade game was a huge hit, but I actually wasn't aware about the merchandise. There's a Donkey Kong coloring book from 1982, a board game featuring Mario, Green Mario, Yellow Mario, and who could forget Blue Mario, a card game that I'm not paying for on eBay, arcade figurines, which features Junior a year later, a licensed Iron clothing patch. You know you've gone far enough when you have that. There's even this plush that terrifies me. Like he looks nothing like how he does in the arcade. What the heck? Who approved this? There's one thing I want to say before closing the video. I wouldn't recommend binge watching the series. There's a reason why this was in a block with other shows like Frogger instead of a standalone series. It has its moments, but it suffers with a bland cast of characters. I just think the importance of this show for the Super Mario series shouldn't go unnoticed. And with that, thank you for watching and have a good one.